doesn't change, especially for white males. So it's it's really a fascinating issue because there certainly are qualified African Americans out there who can be head coaches, and a lot of it is just about getting opportunity. You look at somebody like Tyrone Willingham at Notre Dame, former Michigan State player, head coach at Notre Dame. They gave him a couple, 3 years. He didn't do very well, and they fired him. Even though he did some of the things that they wanted him to do from an academic standpoint. Then he goes out to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired Charlie Weiss, who is a white coach with an NFL background, who comes in and has basically the same or worse record as Tyrone Willingham, but he gets a 10-year contract extension. So how do you say to Black America, well, the opportunities are there and the playing field is level when things like that happen? And you're seeing more and more black quarterbacks in the NFL, but it's all based on the spread offense, where you can use the black athletes' athletic ability. It doesn't have to be just a thrower; it can be a runner. You look at somebody like Vince Young from Texas. Michigan runs the spread offense. So, it's there just are, just like in the business world or in education, there are stereotypes about people, and until you actually look at what a person and who a person is and what their qualities are, and you focus just on the race, those stereotypes get perpetuated, and especially in sports, because sports are so visible. You don't necessarily see it in the corporate world because the corporate world is private. But in sports, if you've got a white guy and a black guy who are both competing for quarterback, one of them's going to play and one of them isn't. And all of America gets to see that on Sunday afternoon.
All right, and then how do you feel about the development of women's sports in America?
Interesting, because when I grew up, there wasn't much opportunity for girls in high school. I mean, there was a gymnastics team. We had a girls basketball team, but I don't know if anybody ever went to one of their games. There wasn't a girls tennis team. I don't even know if we had a girls softball team. We might have, and I think they had track. So certainly now there are a lot more opportunities for girls than there were. A lot of that is driven by Title IX. But as the quality of play gets better, you see much more interest in it. A good example is Michigan State with their women's basketball program. There's a lot of interest in that. They had real good turnout during the NCAA tournament, a lot of support. Still not as much support as there is for the men's team, but I think networks like the Big Ten Network will do a lot to help promote women's athletics because, again, they want to fill airtime, and so there are certain times when the only thing available is women's sports, whether it's swimming and diving or track or softball or basketball in particular. And so as they get more exposure through television, I think more people will pay attention to it. So it certainly is different than when I was a kid. A lot more opportunities, a lot more exposure. You do see, like, the WNBA does get some national television exposure, but nowhere near as much media emphasis on women's sports as there is men's.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.